Strengthening alliances. Sir Keir Starmer is the first British leader invited to France for Armistice Day since Sir Winston Churchill.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The nation has fallen silent to mark Armistice Day. Thousands of people in schools, streets and offices across the UK stopped what they were doing to remember those who lost their lives in war. Our correspondent Sarah Campbell reports.
The National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, engraved with the names of 16,000 service personnel. They and the millions who've died in the wars since 1914 were remembered today.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn.
The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the moment the First World War came to an end in 1918.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
The Duchess of Edinburgh laid a wreath on the central plinth of the Armed Forces Memorial. And in Paris, united in remembrance, the British Prime Minister and the French President. Across Europe and the UK, generations standing side by side to honour those who gave so much for our freedom. Sarah Campbell, BBC News.
Well, as we saw there, the Prime Minister was taking part in events in Paris with the French President Emmanuel Macron. He becomes the first British Prime Minister since Sir Winston Churchill to travel to France to commemorate Armistice Day. Diplomacy was also on the agenda, with the two leaders discussing Ukraine and the Middle East. Our diplomatic correspondent Caroline Hawley reports.
Beneath the iconic Arc de Triomphe in Paris, two men sending a powerful message. President Macron personally invited Sir Keir to attend France's national commemorations. Standing side by side for a morning of ceremony and symbolism. Not since the end of World War II, according to Number 10, has a British Prime Minister done this. Grainy images show the French wartime leader Charles de Gaulle standing beside Winston Churchill, who you can just see here tipping his hat. Together today, they laid wreaths of remembrance, but pressing modern-day problems also preoccupy these men, which they discussed away from the cameras, including the crisis in the Middle East and the war in Ukraine. European leaders are unnerved by the implications of Donald Trump's incoming presidency, what it means for the continent's security, and American military support for Ukraine. The fighting has escalated recently. Kyiv wants more help from its Western allies to push Russian forces back. Donald Trump said on the campaign trail he could end the war within a day, though no one knows quite what that means.
If the reports of his call with Putin last week are right, then President Trump is exactly right to warn Putin against escalation of the conflict in Ukraine. And now's the time for Ukraine's staunchest allies, to remain with them and step up our support.
Today, two allies stood together, remembering the past and rekindling their country's relationship after Brexit. And they agreed to deepen cooperation on a host of shared concerns, including migration and climate change, in new, uncertain times. Caroline Hawley, BBC News.